Talladega Superspeedway, presented by DraftKings. Bit of an overcast day now in Talladega, Alabama, as 45 cars will come out and attempt to qualify for tomorrow's race. It is the final race of round 2, which chasers won't advance into round 3. There will be 4 of them. Only 8 will advance and still have a shot at the championship. If you look at the 12 drivers fighting for those 8 spots, you see right on the cut line, Martin Truex Jr., and then Kyle Busch, Ryan Newman, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Matt Kenseth. None of them in a must-win situation, but they all have to have great finishes, and when you come to Talladega Superspeedway, you just don't know if you're going to be able to get those great finishes. Hello, everyone. Rick Allen alongside Jeff Burton, Steve Letarte. When we come to Talladega Superspeedway, and we've been talking about this for weeks, this is the great unknown. What is it about Talladega that is so difficult to grasp?
Well, I think the main thing is just so many cars in one pack, and you get in so many wrecks that you had nothing to do with. That's why the drivers fear this racetrack, is that you can be doing everything right, and your day is ruined, your opportunity to win a championship is ruined, and you've done nothing wrong. So that's why everybody's so afraid of this racetrack, is that it gets the control gets taken out of your hands.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the grid, only Joe Logano truly is safe, because Denny Hamlin with an 18-point cushion, that's not safe here at Talladega, because as Jeff mentioned, the accidents are very big. They can involve a lot of cars, and they can have nothing to do with you or what you have been doing all day. It's just what pack you're in, what opportunity spins in front of you. So these guys have to, there's that fine balance. Do they ride to the back? Do they push to the front? There's a lot of unknown questions going into tomorrow's race.
Okay, Steve, we're back to super speedway qualifying, which means no pack qualifying. Now it's single car. How do you go about this differently, and what's the goal at the end of the day?
Well, the goal is still to run fast. While it's not as exciting perhaps as group qualifying, what it is for the crew chiefs is a chance to show off a little bit. Everybody wants to have a fast car. The draft might be the equalizer, but you still want a fast car. These teams, these companies, these engine builders, they want to have the fastest car in Talladega. It's bragging rights. It's ego. It's everything you want it to be. So you try to put a fast car out there. While it might not transfer into the draft, you do all you can by yourself.
Yeah, and the thing about today is you are measuring who has the fastest car, okay? It is single, and we're going to race, tomorrow we're going to race in 3-car packs, we're going to race in lines. So, maybe the best car today isn't the best car tomorrow. However, a fast car is still a fast car. So if I'm driving a car, I want to sit on the pole, because that means now I have a car that I think's fast enough to set the pace, to force the issue, to do things that I can't do with a slower car. When you have a slow car and you try to do too much, it actually hurts you. So qualifying is without a doubt a sign of who has the best car and who can be aggressive. And also, the strategies for tomorrow's race can be set today. Meaning, if you qualify 25th, 30th, you don't have a fast car, well, maybe that determines what your strategy is for the race. Also, if you do have a fast car, that also sets the strategy to go try to lead laps and force the issue.
This morning there was breaking news in the garage, actually through tech inspection. Let's go to Mike Massaro for more on that.
And, Rick, whenever you come to a restrictor plate track, technical inspection is extremely tight. And that was the case for all the Stewart-Haas cars this morning in pre-qualifying inspection. NASCAR discovered something they did not like with the assembly of the radiator inlet ducting. It did not conform, and they asked all the Stewart-Haas teams to make modifications to the dimensions, allow them to be more correct and in line. Now, I spoke with competition director for Stewart-Haas Racing. That would be Greg Zippadelli, and he seemed a little bit frustrated with the situation. Didn't feel like it would affect them all that much in terms of performance, but it definitely took away from their preparation. It cost them 2 hours of time today to try to get these cars on the racetrack and ready to go qualifying. I spoke with Tony Gibson, crew chief for Kurt Busch, and he said the biggest concern he has right now is that all the data they acquired during practice yesterday is a little skewed, because this is a little bit of a different setup for them. Steve?
Well, yeah, without a doubt. I think Mike hit it right on the head. This, I don't think it's a huge performance advantage. Basically, there are some dimensions you have to have for the ductwork. That's what controls the air from the nose of the car back to the radiator. It would be a little frustrating that it wasn't found in the first day of inspection. You would hope as a race team, if you were out of bounds, that would have been found, but it wasn't. NASCAR still has a responsibility to correct it, even if it is on day 2. The difference is just what Mike said. Preparation. If they're working on ductwork that they weren't planning on working on for 2 hours, what do you do what else were you supposed to be doing with that time? You know, these teams didn't show up with a tremendous amount of extra time on their hands, so really it's the timing of the change I think is going to affect them the most.
Yeah, and I think the biggest concern for me would be that yesterday when you did run in packs, you were trying to determine how much tape you know, what was the cooling, where could you put your car, did it overheat, did it do those kind of things. Now that the internals of the ductwork are different, all that may change a little bit. And how your car drives could be affected too, how it pulls up to other cars, the drafting ability. Now they don't know, so they didn't learn as much yesterday as maybe perhaps they wanted.
And the most important thing is it put together rock solid? If you have to change something to the racetrack, did you have time to do it as you wanted to do it, or did you have to just put it together to get it on the grid?
We're minutes away from qualifying from Talladega Superspeedway. When we come back, we will talk to drivers before they climb in. Winning the championship at season's end is every driver's goal at the start of the season. Now, the field has been whittled down to 12 drivers who have an opportunity to reach that goal at season's end. Some drivers, it would be their first championship. Others, it would be a second, maybe even a fifth. But for any of them, it would be the ultimate goal in NASCAR Sprint Cup Series competition to hoist the trophy at the end of the season. Only 8 will have that opportunity after tomorrow's race. And welcome back to Talladega Superspeedway as we get ready for qualifying. 45 cars. We'll have to knock that down to 43 by the end of qualifying. Let's go trackside to Dave Burns.
In the garage area with Matt Kenseth, who was on track yesterday, but what everyone has been talking about was what happened last Sunday in Kansas and then what was spoken about earlier this week in the media center when it refers to the disappointing end to your day last weekend, Matt. The conversation between you and the media were about whether you would have done things differently, and then whether you believe Joey when he said he didn't try to wreck you, and apparently you still don't believe that that's the case. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty much summed it up, Dave. So, yeah, I just needed to be faster, so he couldn't direct me, I guess. But really, that was last week. Just looking forward to Talladega. Glad we're finally ready to do something today. And looking forward to racing tomorrow. Hopefully, we can keep our DeWalt Camry somewhere, qualify it toward the front, and hopefully we can be in the mix there at the end and have a shot at, getting a win and moving on.
All right, and you took 35 laps of practice yesterday. Is your car good for qualifying?
It's really hard to tell, to be honest with you. You know, it's hard to tell whether it's real good for the race or qualifying. You never really get a true feel for that, I don't think, until you get in the race and you get a huge draft out there with all the cars and everybody's out there after going through tech and doing all that. So I don't really know. I feel like it drove pretty good, and it seemed like it was going to be okay.
All right. Good luck to you. Matt Kenseth goes for the pole if he makes the final round of 12. Mike?
And, of course, Dave, the other side of the story revolves around Joey Logano. We just heard from Matt Kenseth in regards to what transpired last week. You've had nearly a week here to digest what happened. What are your thoughts on the closing laps last week now here almost a week removed?
Pretty much the same thing, after rewatching it, once you get a chance to calm down and relax and be able to take it all and understand what happened, I saw that we were racing hard. He was doing what he had to do to win a race. Don't blame him for that. Obviously he had to throw the box. I get that. I was to the point that, hey, I gotta hold my ground at some point, and so I switched to go to the bottom, and we collided. It's nothing intentional, just one of those racing things. It's unfortunate. It's not the way you want to see a race end in a controversial finish, but the fact of the matter is it happened, and we'll move on and we'll race hard and be excited about what we got to do here in Talladega here and try to have some fun, try to win another race. We're going to have a good car, I feel, and you also never know what happens in Talladega. So just like I said, I'm just excited about what this team's doing right now and get on to the next round.
As you heard, Rick, the focus now on Talladega as Joey Logano attempts to sweep all the races here in round 2.
And we are moving on, and we're moving ahead. We will be having cars on. NASCAR Mobile is the best way to follow your favorite drivers. Build your own leaderboards. Listen to driver in-car audio and watch live in-car cameras. Go to NASCAR.com/mobile. Rules change when you come to super speedways as far as qualifying. We look at the qualifying format, no group qualifying. So it'll be one-time lap in each round. It's only 2 rounds now, so to advance out of round 1, you have to be in the top 12. So the top 12 will fight for the pole, and that could in turn mean pit selection, which pit stall number 1 not always the best, especially here at Talladega.
Yeah, Talladega is one of the unique tracks, probably the only one we run at, that pit stall 1 isn't really the preferred pit stall. You'd rather be at 17, the first opening. Basically, pit stall 1, you pit here so much under green, you're not at speed when you get back on the racetrack. So you would rather have a little bit of a rolling start to get back onto the racetrack. That's why you pick pit stall 17 right behind the opening.
As Travis Kvapil goes out onto the track, Jeff, is there a strategy? This is a racetrack. I know that you said yesterday during practice you hold it wide open and you try to hold your line. But is there a strategy of getting up to speed? Because you only have one lap. You can't screw that one up. Is there a strategy to go high through 3 and 4?
We saw Travis Kvapil, as soon as he got on the racetrack, he just went as high as he could. So what Travis is doing right now, and what every driver will do, is just try to make the track as long as they can make it coming to get to the green. This racetrack is all about trying to build momentum when you get the green flag. And then you're going to see Travis, when he gets the green flag and crosses the line, he's going to get as low as he can, and then he's going to try to make the racetrack as small as he can possibly make it. So you're using the track, the size of it, to get your momentum, and then you're trying to make the track as small as you can. So you see him right here, he's getting the green flag. He's already moved down the racetrack, and now he's going to put his left sides on the yellow line. And really, as a driver, that's all you can do, is make the circle as small as you can make it, keep your hands as smooth and as slow moving as you can, and that's really all you can do.
Which, that's something, you know, when we talk about single car qualifying at the speedways, 1 lap is a big change. Not only are there 2 rounds, that's a big change, but if you go back in history, 1 lap, because there are a lot of times, Jeff, we used to see this right for years. We'd go to Daytona testing or come here to test, come here for qualifying, and there were a lot of cars that would run a first lap. Oh, man, that car has a shot at the pole. And then they wouldn't run much fast. Other cars would run a real slow first lap and have a great second lap. So I think only running 1 lap does suit different engine manufacturers, different teams differently.
Travis Kvapil, a former Camping World Truck Series champion, making, or attempting to make, just his 4th start in 2015, and he will set the bar. 50.889 for Travis Kvapil. His average speed, 188.174 miles per hour.
And so let's take a little time to remind everyone why we're doing this procedure the way we were doing it. We were doing group qualifying, and in the qualifying, we were having wrecks. We were having a lot of cars wrecked because you had to be in the draft. You had people trying to lay back and get a big run. We ended up wrecking race cars just for qualifying. So NASCAR said, you know what, no more of that. Drivers didn't like it, NASCAR didn't like it. Well, then history tells us that when we go to single car qualifying, it's going to take forever. It takes forever. So then NASCAR said, you know what, let's speed it up and make it only 1 lap versus 2 laps, and we're going to send the second car out as quickly as we can. So that sped this whole process up as they made the change also.
And we see how Bobby Labonte now tracking in the green. His average.
See, Bobby has left sides, I mean, literally on the yellow line. That's just, again, it's just, see, even on the straightaway, he's on the left sides on the yellow. He's just trying to make the circle of the racetrack as small as he can possibly make it.
His average going to be closer to 189 miles per hour. He slows down to 188 as he goes through the trioval and across the start-finish line. But Bobby Labonte, 189.815 miles per hour, 50.449. Mike.
And catching up with one of the chasers, that would be Martin Truex Jr. He comes in 8th on the grid, 6 points to the good. Is that enough to make you feel relieved coming into this race?
I feel great.
Sure you do. What is it like coming to this race at this track with so much at stake?
It's just a lot out of your control. You know, you go somewhere like Texas or, you know, last weekend, a place like that where you can go race and hopefully have a good race car and run a smart race. Here it's just, you know, kind of a wild card. So you just go out there and you try to race hard. And, you know, I think all of our goals right now is probably just to get to that last lap and hope you have a shot at, you know, putting yourself in the right position.
Well, we wish you the best of luck on Sunday. We know that Martin Truex Jr. Knows his way to the front back in the spring, qualified 36th and still finished top 5, Rick.
And that's a characteristic of this racetrack. You can start pretty much anywhere in the field and find yourself up front, leading laps, potentially getting the wins. We see Timmy Hill, a pretty good lap for Timmy Hill. Timmy is one of the drivers that needs to be in the top 36 if he wants to make the race on Sunday. And that lap for Timmy Hill, he averaged over 190 miles an hour at 50.246 seconds for his lap.
All the teams that are eligible for provisionals today, they're last on the list. So he has to be in the top 36 if he's going to get himself in. He's already beaten 2 cars, so that's a good sign.
The practices that took place yesterday, the times and speeds you can't translate because some cars were out there by themselves, others were out there in a pack. So we saw speeds of over 201 miles an hour yesterday in practice, and people might be asking, well, how come we're only seeing speeds of 190 miles an hour here in qualifying? It's because they don't have help. They don't have assistance. They don't have the draft.
That's absolutely right, Rick. And also, even the cars that did run by themselves yesterday, with a group of cars on the racetrack, that still affects the racetrack. There's still air moving around out there. Even as big as this facility is, if you get a big pack of cars, 8 or 10 cars out there, it affects your car. Also, if your liquids are warm, if your hubs have been heated up, your transmission, your gear oil, your brakes, there are things that you could do. If these cars go out and run a second time, which we'll see here in the second round, I would expect some of these cars to actually run faster because everything inside the car has been heated up. They'll have the opportunity to cool the water, which is the number one thing you want to cool, but the other things, the drivetrain will be heated up. That helps in lap time.
Jeb Burton goes out, and he is third quickest of the 4 drivers that have been on the track. Not a great lap for Jeb, but Jeb's in a situation where he's looking to make his first ever Talladega Sprint Cup start. And Jeb, your nephew, Jeff.
I believe he's about 5th in line to get a provisional, so he's going to have a little bit of help here, I think, with that lap. He's going to have some people that are ahead of him in that provisional list that need to qualify out of the top 36.
Well, I know we talk about this a lot, but that lap from Timmy Hill, we talk about the chase, and it's an impressive run that these 12 drivers are trying to do to win a championship. But this 62 team is trying to be here on Sunday, and they have to find a way to do that. They have to be in the top 36, which means they have to beat 9 or 10 cars. So currently the fastest on the list. That's a lot of work went into that 62 car to come down here and do this. That's what we talked about. This is their opportunity, right? This is a track that it lends itself to different opportunities than downforce tracks. Maybe that's just what the 60 car need, or 62 car needed.
Alex Bowman looking like he's going to be almost 0.3 of a second off of what Timmy Hill has posted as the mark to beat. Alex Bowman goes third quickest at 50.549. 5 cars have taken time at Talladega Super Speedway. We'll come back more on the track. J.J. Yaley is the new fastest at Talladega with 50.146. Second lap for Yaley. He goes over 190 miles an hour, almost 191 mile an hour average, as now the 35 of Cole Witt, 24-year-old out of Alpine, California, on the clock. We will start to populate the left side of your screen. Again, the top 12 will advance. 45 cars are here at Talladega, only 43 spots available. Cole Witt goes third quickest at a 50.358. Coming up, Michael McDowell, Sam Hornish Jr., Jimmy Johnson, and Michael Waltrip, the next 4 to qualify. And let's go trackside to Dave Burns.
And Kevin had a very interesting perspective earlier today. Ricky got to be the guest analyst in the booth for the truck race. And I feel like you saw about everything you could hope to see in terms of understanding a Talladega race. Not like you didn't before, but what did you pick up watching that race that you might apply to tomorrow? There's some don't do things, aren't there?
There's definitely some don't do things. I think get it full of fuel. Don't screw up on pit road and try to position yourself at the front of the pack are the 3 things that I saw in the race today. So it's definitely an interesting perspective. I like being up there in the booth and being able to do that on occasion, but still rather be in the seat of this Budweiser Jimmy John's Chevy.
Okay, go hold it wide open for qualifying, okay?
That's the plan.
All right, Kevin Harvick, 4-car going out a while from now, Rick.
Yeah, that's a little bit different from qualifying what they're used to, where everybody gets in the car at the same time and they're all ready to go out on the track. Now it's back to single car qualifying, which we've seen before, where you've got a little time before you get in your car.
You do, but an interesting thing that Kevin Harvick was talking about there was this track position. That's something we've heard more and more this week than really ever at Talladega. I think as people are starting to watch these tapes, watch the video of how these guys are winning these races, they run towards the front of the pack. Dale Earnhardt Jr. here in the spring led the closing laps, controlled the pack. And it's rare, Jeff. You talk about all these strategies, but rarely do you hear so much conversation about track position at Talladega. But I've heard more in the last 4 or 5 days than ever coming here.
Michael McDowell was the fastest on his lap, 50.077. The first one over 191 miles an hour. What can we see one car? Are we expecting 193, 194 miles an hour on their own out here? Can they get that fast?
The reason Steve and I aren't answering is because, what we talked about earlier, we really don't know. And a matter of fact, the teams don't know either, because with the air, there were so many cars on the racetrack yesterday that it's hard to know what that means to today. I mean, really, these guys, I can remember being part of this, and you really and truly do not know how fast you're going to go out and run. I mean, you have no idea. So, I mean, I would hate to make a prediction, because with all the cars on the racetrack yesterday and not really having single car runs clean, it's very difficult to know.
This will be an increase. Sam Hornish Jr. goes 49.94, just under 192 miles an hour. Good lap for Sam Hornish Jr. That puts 9 cars that have taken time, and now Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy Johnson and his team, they did their normal run by yourself. They stayed away from other cars. They ran by themselves the whole time. Again, they were on the racetrack where other people were, so it's not the same as this, but that's the way they work the restricted plate races. They do this every single time. They use practice, single car runs. They almost never get in the pack.
And they also run with the grill open in practice. They have the grill open like they're in race trim, yet they're by themselves. That is a plan that they have coming here, and so even the 48, I'm not sure, knows exactly what they're expecting to run by itself, but you can see here, almost 0.3 of a second faster than Sam Hornish Jr. It looks like making some contact with the racetrack as well. A lot of sparks, which is surprising, because you expect the pace to be a lot faster in the race. I would expect that car to travel more, perhaps hit the ground a little bit more.
You might want to watch this race when this car when the race starts tomorrow, because it's traveling that much now. It's going to travel more tomorrow, and it will be bottoming out.
Jimmy Johnson, the 40-year-old out of El Cajon, California, is fastest in qualifying, 49.506. He goes 193.431 miles per hour, an average speed around this track.
Yes, Rick, they can definitely run 193. Can I go back and answer the question now? No?
You can,
okay.
And you have.
Okay.
Next up, that's Michael Waltrip.
I'd say 194.
You think 194 now that you saw that? Michael Waltrip, so good at restrictor plate racing. A 2-time Daytona 500 winner. Michael has won here before, back in 2003.
And this is what makes qualifying the restrictor plate races so different than other was that, what was MWR's involvement in this car? Normally the 98 car doesn't have as much involvement. So, but with Michael driving the MWR, how much do they affect? How much do they help with the car? So then you look at Jeb Burton, Bobby Labonte, Alex Bowen, all those guys. The MWR help with this car really affects them, because it will affect who can run fast and ultimately who goes home, because they're going to run pretty quick. So you just never know how much MWR helped with this effort.
Michael Waltrip, as he crosses the start-finish line, is 6th quickest. 6 of the 11 that have been on track. Jimmy Johnson, fastest at Talladega Superspeedway. Matt DiBenedetto just finishing up his qualifying run. He is 9th quickest of the 12 that have been on the track and taken time. Now that line is set, so we will start comparing drivers to Travis Kvapil. The top 12 will advance into the second and final round of qualifying. And Austin Dillon comfortably ahead of Travis Kvapil.
See how still Austin's trying to be with the wheel, how slow he's moving it. Again, he's on the bottom of the racetrack, and as a driver, that's really all you can do is just try to keep the front tires, don't turn the wheel any more than you have to do. And ultimately, that's all you can do.
And we're riding right along the track with Austin Dillon.
So he shuts the engine off as soon as he crosses the start-finish line. Keep as much heat out of it as he can. They've got the front end taped off for aerodynamic reasons, so you got to get that shut off. If you don't, it'll overheat.
And that lap by the 3 is kind of showing me that the 48's lap must have been pretty good, because Austin Dillon ran a 52nd lap, and Jimmy Johnson ran a 49.5 second. I mean, he's a half a second faster than the 3 of Austin Dillon.
Ryan Newman, also in the green. Austin Dillon, by the way, 3rd fastest in his run. Ryan Newman, one of the chase drivers, looking to advance into round 3 of the playoffs.
I'm really interested to watch the strategy of these teams, like the 31 car. They're 8 points out. What do? Do you go race in the front all day long, force the issue, try to push the tempo? Do you ride in the back, wait and see what happens to some of your people you're racing with, or get in wrecks? I mean, how do you how do you do this? I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they're playing.
And the 31 signature seems to be right around in the back. You find them at the back of more of these races in the front. That's not because they don't have a fast car; it's because they choose to run there. It's going to be just. That's a great lap, P2 right there. It's going to be so much more difficult, especially if you qualify well, to commit to that, being on the outside. He's outside. He's going to have someone have an accident, or he has to outrun them to gain 8 points.
You mentioned 8 points, the difference. That's based upon Martin Truex Jr.'s points, who's now on the track and on the clock. He also is tracking ahead of that 12th spot. Now it's Alex Bowman that's on the cut line.
And he's only 6 points to the good. So 6 positions, 6 positions. He gets beaten by 6 positions. That's it. And he goes home. So that's what I'm saying. These guys are in a tough spot. It's one of those, you didn't want to have to come to this racetrack and have to have a good race to advance, but that's the situation they're in, and it's just going to be fascinating to watch how they play tomorrow out.
Another thing that's happening on the left side of the screen when you look at that rundown, Jeff, is we talked about the 62, 26, 95 all need to make in the race. Well, McDowell has as you see, Truex easily about 0.6 of a second into the top 12 so far.
And you saw Truex, he went all the way below those yellow lines, make the track even that much smaller.
Let's go down to Mike Massaro.
And Rick, it's always interesting to understand the mindset of a race car driver. No doubt Kyle Busch extremely focused. We're watching you walking up and down pit road, looking at notes, watching the video screen, looking at other race cars on the track. What types of things are on your mind before you buckle yourself in for qualifying here at Talladega?
Not much, really. Just hold it wide open, and whatever she's got, she's got. That's about it, you know. So really, there's not a whole lot a driver can do in this situation in order to try to make any speed. Just make sure you run as tight of a radius as you can and hold the pedal down as hard as you can. That's pretty much it.
Certainly a lot on the line for Kyle Busch. It's a make it or break it race. He's 6 points back and certainly has to make up that ground on Sunday, Rick.
And we pointed out the fact that Martin Truex Jr. went below the double yellow line, and normally it's been in racing. You can't advance your position. You can't go below the double yellow line. In qualifying, the drivers were told they were not allowed to go below the double yellow line, so Martin Truex Jr.'s time is going to be disallowed. So he was third quickest in this qualifying session. That's going to drop him out of that top 12.
We talked about it when we started the show. The qualifying efforts today could greatly affect the strategy for tomorrow. So now that Martin Truex is guaranteed to start in the back, does that force his issue? Does that just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to have to ride it around in the back for a little while.
Again, this was Martin coming through the tri-oval.
And this is something we've seen in the past drivers do. We've seen drivers, get all the way below the yellow lines and to just make the track as small as they can.
That also affects.
Martin wasn't supposed to.
Well, that also affects who's going to make the race. That's with this lap right here of Landon Castle. It's a very important lap because to make the race, these cars that are outside the top 36 have to beat 9 cars. Well, Michael McDowell, currently in 5th in the 95 car, he's in the race. The 26 of J.J. Yaley is in the race. Timmy Hill is looking for help right now. Timmy Hill is needing to beat one more car to try to make it. So this race to make the field is really heating up.
So if Landon Castle doesn't finish in front of Timmy Hill, that puts Timmy Hill in the show? Is that?
Well, we don't know
the numbers that we're looking at. I mean, as far as Timmy Hill needs to beat 9 drivers.
And we know Martin Truex is
Martin Truex now
last.
Has dropped down. So as Landon Castle goes across the start-finish line, only 15th quickest for Landon Castle. That puts 10 cars behind behind Timmy Hill now.
I think that also guarantees Michael Waltrip in the 98. So you have to continue to go down the running order. Now you look at the 23, the 21, the 46, all of those cars. This is what happens. As that line moves, you're not guaranteed to be here. You have to be in the top 36.
And that puts in trouble right now the 32 of Bobby Labonte and I believe the 23 of Jeb. I believe those are the 2 that are in the biggest trouble right now.
That's how close Michael Waltrip was to not making this race. That lap by Landon Castle there, finishing below him, and the time disallowed for Martin Truex Jr. now puts Michael Waltrip into the top 36.
And Michael might have to send Martin Truex a fruit basket. if he ends up exactly where he's at, because that mistake by the 78 team and that time being disallowed has shuffled around the order of who's going to be in this race.
Eric Almirola in the green. That's compared to Alex Bowman's time, which is on the cut line. Good lap for Eric Almirola, as Eric goes 4th quickest of the 18 that have been on the track. Still, everyone chasing Jimmy Johnson here at Talladega Superspeedway. Josh Wise 14th in his qualifying effort, but the big story, Martin Truex Jr.'s time disallowed. He's standing by with Dave.
And Rick, he has talked to his team, gave him that I don't understand look, shrugged your shoulders. What's your understanding of what just happened here, Martin?
Well, the last couple of times we've been here, we run on the apron through the tri-oval. So, I mean, apparently there was a memo sent out, and I never got it. So I don't really know what to say.
How will this change how you have to race then on Sunday?
It won't change at all. We started in the back last time, too. We'll be fine.
All right. So disappointed, but moving on to tomorrow, guys.
And the change to the rule came when they went to single vehicle qualifying. When there was one car on the track at a time, that's when they made what Martin said, the memo, or the rule that the drivers aren't allowed to go below the double yellow line. And it was here in the spring at Talladega when we started doing the single car qualifying. That's when that rule was imposed.
Well, we have to remember there are 2 cars on the racetrack. So to send 2 cars, send a car while one's on the backstretch. So right here you see Jimmy McMurray. Well, his lap's done. He's shut off. Well, he's going to go to the left, and he's going to be on the apron of either the backstretch or turns 3 and 4 when the 17 goes by. So for a safety reason, while they're not on the front stretch where Martin did, I understand that. But NASCAR must have thought, hey, we have to keep everyone on the racetrack, because when you watch Ricky Stenhouse right here, he's going to go by the one. The one now is just rolling into turn 3 slowly. So, at some point, 2 cars are going to pass. You just have one way off the pace on the apron.
And, that's a really good example of communicating.
Right.
The fact that Martin Truex did not know that as a driver, I mean, somewhere along the line, communication was not done the way it needed to happen. I mean, your driver needs to understand the rules.
And we'll have to remember back in July, Daytona, where that rule would have been imposed during qualifying at Daytona, but Daytona qualifying was rained out, so they didn't ever get on the track for that. And that may have been a learning experience, but because it was rained out, they didn't have that opportunity to learn that.
While it seems simple, there are so many things that go on over the course of the weekend, so many details, so many opportunities to miss stuff. You have a car, you have engines, you have pit strategy, you have employees, you have all the stuff you're working on. Those are the small things. When you get done, Cole Pern's going to want to know how Martin didn't know, and maybe he didn't know, and sure, how did the PR person, who all was responsible for that. And in the end, it's Martin Truex's and Cole Pern's responsibility as a driver and crew chief. They're the leader of that ship. But these are very big teams. You're going to ask yourself, who else could have helped?
And one thing, too, I think adds to all of that is Talladega on Friday and Saturday has a different feel than every other race. I mean, because when you come here, if you watch practice, the teams don't really work on their cars a whole lot. It's almost like, it's a much more relaxed feel. Now, come Sunday, it's a more intense feel than anywhere else. But Friday and Saturday is a little more relaxed. Drivers aren't in the car as much, and I think that flow also matters too. You don't meet the same, you don't do the same stuff, so I think ultimately that has an impact as well.
Drivers in qualifying say all we're doing is holding it wide open, going around the racetrack. So maybe the pressure isn't as high as obviously we know it will be on Sunday when they've got 42 other cars around them.
We've seen drivers
big lap there for Kurt Busch.
We've seen drivers make a 2-lap qualifying, forget to run the bottom on the second lap.
Right.
We've seen drivers, we talked to a driver last night who will rename I will not divulge his name. That's what I'm trying to say. And he said he qualified here with one lap qualifying, and he forgot to run the bottom, coming to get the start-finish line. So it's just a different feel when you come to Talladega. Again, all that intensity gets ramped up tomorrow like nowhere else. But Friday and Saturday is a little more relaxed attitude.
Another Chase driver that is in need of a great finish, and when you talk with Dale Earnhardt Jr., which, by the way, Steve, you did earlier today, he likes this track. He likes being in this position at this, well, he doesn't like being in this position, but if he's in this position, he likes it to be here because he has definitely had success at this track.
He point blank told me this morning that if you had any track that he could pick to come and try to give yourself the opportunity. This is the track. And when you look at the statistics, there's a good reason. He's been here 32 times. He's been in the top 10 of those races. So 30% of the time, roughly 30% of the time, he's been in the top 2 when he's been at the racetrack. And you see here why he likes this race car so much. This is a great lap, jumps up to the 2nd position. It's the same car. He told me that they ran at all the Speedway races this year. So
does somebody need to tell? I was going to say, does somebody need to tell him that he's only going 1 lap?
He wants to.
He was getting after it a little bit there, all the way through 1 and 2.
See his left leg? What he's doing is pumping the brakes up. So these teams, they'll push the brake, they'll push the pistons and the brake calipers back. So if you don't push your brake pedal like that to get the fluid to push the pistons out, you don't have any brakes. So he had to push to get the calipers out to the rotors so that it would eventually stop. I've seen drivers forget to do that and get on pit road and have no brakes. So that's why he was doing that. Now, he will not be able to do that in the next round.
That's right.
Teams can't get to him and push him out, which no team will be able to.
Kyle Busch tracking to move into the top 12. Again, the big story to start off this qualifying session, Martin Truex Jr. went below the double yellow line as he was going through the tri-oval. NASCAR had told the drivers in this single car qualifying format they are not allowed to do that, and so his time disallowed as we see Kyle Busch staying in the green. That's in comparison to Timmy Hill's time. And Kyle Busch, 4th quickest. We go back to 2008 and we'll give you a flashback as to that double yellow line for a long time, and it was a single yellow line when Regan Smith decided to dive below and try to get the win as Regan Smith goes below that yellow line. And Tony Stewart, he thinks that he wins the race, but it ultimately is Tony Stewart that wins because Regan Smith not allowed to go below that yellow line.
Rule is if you go below the yellow line and advance your position, you will be black flagged. If you push someone below the yellow line, you may be black flagged. So if you go down there and pick up your position, you're going to be black flagged. And the reason that is because when we didn't have that rule, we would be 5 wide getting into turn 3, 5 wide getting into turn 1 with cars on the apron. And eventually something had to happen, and generally it was a big wreck. So they said, you know what, we're going to create an out of bounds at these racetracks to keep the drivers on the racetrack, because we were entering the corner on the apron of this racetrack on a huge wrecks.
This racetrack, we have mentioned how much pressure is on the drivers. Joey Logano will have just a little bit less pressure on his shoulders because Joey Logano's won the last 2 races. He is automatically advancing into round 3 of the playoffs.
A lot less.
But there's still pressure because this is a racetrack where you're constantly thinking as a driver, right, Jeff?
Well, listen, this is Daytona and Talladega are the racetracks that when I go to sleep on Saturday night before the race, I can't sleep. When I wake, the little bit of sleep I do have, all day Sunday I'm nervous because race car drivers aren't dumb. If you look at stats and you've done this long enough, you know there's a good chance you're going to be in a wreck. And when you come here in Daytona, that's just the way it is. That's what restricted place racing is. So even though he has no concerns from a point standpoint, you're still in that race car that you have a pretty good idea you're going to be in a wreck.
And this lap right here for Ryan Blaney, tracking into the green to be the top 12, is a very important lap because this is a team that has to be in the top 36. We've seen some weather bite this 21 team a few times. They've missed the race because of rain. Every time they get a chance to qualify, they're very fast at the downforce tracks, but the Wood brothers choose to not run a full schedule. That's what comes along with it. There's not a guarantee to be in the race, but you see here, easily tracking into the top 12, really close to one of the better times we've seen. He's going to be feeling really good about this lap. This should be close to 2nd or 3rd, I imagine.
Ryan Blaney, 3rd quickest. 49.545, over 193 miles an hour. And which one of you said that we still were going to get to 194? Or are we still thinking that's possible?
Well, we have another round.
Okay. 193 miles an hour, 193.43 for Jimmy Johnson is the fastest qualifier as the 2 of Brad Keselowski takes the green flag on his lap for qualifying. As we started the show, we showed you 4 drivers that are below the cut line of 8 in the points that will advance into the 3rd round of the playoffs. Brad Keselowski was in that situation a year ago where he was in a must-win situation when he came to Talladega. And Brad Keselowski has shown that when he gets put in that situation, he can show everyone that he's capable of getting to victory lane. And that's exactly what he was able to do a year ago as he tracks well into the top 12. 0.4 of a second faster. Brad Keselowski, fourth quickest on his qualifying run. And we go back to last year, blocking Ryan Newman.
Huge block, and that block is what enabled him to win the race. It slowed the 31 down. It was enabled the two to take a left and get away from the 31. That aggressive move, and also his teammate blocking behind him. Those two things together are what allowed him to win this race. And the guy that wins this race on Sunday, he is going to have to be crazy aggressive. That's part of this deal. You have to block. If you don't, you will not have a chance to win.
And the other caveat to that race, that was actually the second attempt at a green-white checker finish, which now that rule is out. Brad Keselowski would not have won that race. He would not have advanced into the third round if the current rules are in place.
But everyone knows now. The rule's been out all week. They know the rule. It's 188 laps and one attempt at a green-white checker finish. So, you understand the need to be towards the front. We mentioned earlier in the show about track position. I think all of these drivers, Kevin Harvick mentioned it, he needs to be towards the front at the end of this race, because you saw that finish 4 or 5 wide. There was just no room. You weren't going to drive up through the field.
Kevin Harvick, defending series champion. And Kevin goes 6th quickest on his qualifying effort. So of the chasers that have gone, Newman, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. all inside the top 12. Martin Truex Jr., after going below the double yellow lines through the tri-oval, his time disallowed. He's currently 28th. He'll end up being his time disallowed, so he'll be the 43rd in this qualifying session.
So right now we have 2 Hendrick cars, first and second. Then we have 3 Fords, third, fourth, fifth. Let's see if Jeff Gordon can run as fast as Johnson Earnhardt Jr. and get himself up into the front. Because again, Jeff Gordon is not locked in by any means. He has to have a good finish on Sunday.
This is a heck of a lap right now for Jeff Gordon. He's 4.5, almost 5 tenths ahead of a 98. This right here looks like the fastest lap we've seen today. Continues going to the green. I think this is going to relatively easily jump to the top.
We're about to find out. Big lap for Jeff Gordon in his final Talladega race. And he does go to the top. And listen to the roar of the crowd that's here.
Oh, that's 194.
There's that 194-mile-an-hour lap. 194.255 miles an hour. 49.296 the lap that Jeff Gordon just posted. And he was only 7 points ahead of that cut line. And again, that's 7 positions. If Jeff Gordon wants to advance into round 3, he has to stay above that cut line. Be one of the top 8. We'll ride along with Carl Edwards on the right side. You see it's the gyro cam, and that will show you the banking here at Talladega Superspeedway. 33 degrees in turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Edwards also tracking in the green. Trying to bump Sam Hornish Jr. out of the top 12. He crosses the start-finish line. He is 9th quickest. So now Ryan Newman on that cut line. One of the chase drivers potentially not going to be making it on to round 2 of qualifying. Denny Hamlin, another chase driver. Takes the green flag. And Hamlin will try to make his way into the top 12. Already tracking in the green, ahead of what time Newman posted. Denny Hamlin, a 34-year-old out of Chesterfield, Virginia, has 2 wins already on the season. His first one came at Martinsville. The most recent at Chicagoland, which enabled him to advance from round 1 to round 2.
Starting to see that cut line, that 12th position, Rick. It's harder and harder to get to. This is a great lap by Denny Hamlin. It's going to be down in the 60s, it looks like. And as that cut line continues to get faster, it's harder and harder to make that top 12.
7th quickest for Denny Hamlin, and that bumps Ryan Newman out of the top 12.
So we talked about advantages the drivers to try to make. Well, Jeff mentioned earlier about Dale Earnhardt Jr. pumping up the brakes to try to get his car to stop because they pushed the brakes back. Well, Jeff and I both watched Brad Keselowski. You see him, he's shut off here, and he's swerving around, putting the car in gear, letting the clutch out, trying to get the car to slow down. We watched him all the way around after his lap. It doesn't look to me like he ever uses the brakes to stop the car. Times it, takes as much speed as he can. Why does that matter? Well, now in round 2, if he's fortunate enough to move forward, that's one small advantage. You got to remember, Jimmy Johnson's at a .50, Brad Keselowski's at a .56. Maybe that's the advantage that'll help him in round 2. Mike?
You know, Stevie, Casey Kane, a Hendrick Motorsports driver, just glanced at the scoring pylon and happened to notice all 3 of your teammates are 1, 2, 3. How much confidence does that give you before you get in your car?
Oh, man, it looks good to see the Hendrick cars up there, the Hendrick engines. I felt like our Time Warner Cable Chevy was fast yesterday. We just did the drafting side of it, but I think we'll probably jump right up in the middle of those guys. I feel confident with our car and where we've been here lately.
And he's got momentum on his side, too, Rick. A strong top 5 finish last week.
Yeah, Casey Kane trying to get the momentum back in that team, as it was so close of him making it into the chase, but they weren't able to do it in 2015. Kyle Larson on that lap, 15th quickest, 49.946 for Larson. Matt Kenseth, the lowest in points of the 12 chase drivers. If there was a driver that you would say is in a must-win situation, it would probably have to be Matt Kenseth, as he is the furthest back in points. Kenseth, after leading so many laps in Kansas last week, wasn't the fastest car in the closing laps. Joey Logano got to his back bumper. That contact, when Logano got into his back bumper, sent Matt Kenseth around and relegated Kenseth all the way back to 14th. And so now he is 12th in points of the chase drivers. 35 points back to that cut line. Yeah. See a great lap by Matt Kenseth, second quickest. Already on the track, 33 cars. That means 12 more still have to take time this first round. David Gilliland just finishing his qualifying lap, and he is 28th quickest. There have been 34 now that have taken time. Next on the track, Tony Stewart. He is on the clock and right now tracking in the green. Very close to that cut line, and it's getting a lot tighter now as Kyle Busch is the one everyone is compared to in 12th. Tony Stewart looking like he might bump another one of the chasers out of the top 12. Tenth of a second advantage through the tri-oval. And now Kyle Busch on the outside of the top 12.
And, you know, it's not just the chase drivers. You know, Jess mentioned this whole playoff system that all the drivers are on the racetrack. You can't think of a guy that's looking for a good run more than perhaps Tony Stewart. It's not the year he's won it, didn't make the chase, hasn't really competed for wins. Talladega could be the opportunity. Could be a track that he could go out, be aggressive behind the wheel, finds the speed in the 14 car. That win, who knows what a win like that would do.
And he has won a ton of races at Daytona. Right. I mean, not 500 yet, but he's won everything else.
Yeah, he just recently announced his retirement will take place after the 2016 season. Let's go to David.
So Ryan Newman is bumped from the top 12. Ryan, how will this affect your race tomorrow?
I don't know. If I'd have known Truex was going to do that, we could have gone fishing earlier. But we'll take our Caterpillar Chevrolet and have fun with it tomorrow. I mean, obviously nobody knows what the outcome's going to be, and we got one big race to keep in mind. But winning the race would be pretty cool too.
And there's so much pressure this week on getting to that race, and this was such a laid-back day. So have you been feeling what's coming tomorrow?
No, I'm going to go fishing here right now. I'll worry about tomorrow.
I think he's got the right attitude, guys.
How about that? So, no pressure when you go fishing, right? Isn't that one of the more calming things?
Well, it depends on who you fish with.
Well, he was thinking about fishing with Martin Truex Jr.
Well, it sounds like a competition to me.
Paul Menard, 11th quickest. And that pushes Carl Edwards out of the top 12. Now the 55 of David Reagan on the clock. And Reagan will be compared to Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch now in the 12th spot. Again, the top 12 will advance to round 2. Everyone will have 1 lap.
You know, this doesn't look like a great lap for David Reagan, but when you put into consideration that months ago the decision was made that MWR was not going to continue, then how much effort do you put into Talladega? How much effort do you put into super speedway racing? Because it requires a great deal of effort. When you consider that, this lap is a pretty good lap. I know it's not going to make the top 12, but to be able to say, hey, we're not going to race next year, we're not going to build new cars. I mean, you know how much effort's gone into it, and to qualify, although again not great, 18th, that's still pretty solid considering all that.
And really, David Reagan, where he starts isn't as important as where he finishes. And for David Reagan, running for Front Row Motorsports, was able to get the biggest win of his career. Team right here at Talladega Super Speedway. That was back in 2013. David Reagan celebrating that win. Huge, huge win for not only the team, but David Reagan.
And that's the gem. That's what all these little teams do. They see an opportunity like that, a smaller team win at Talladega, and that's what keeps them going. The 13 right here, the Geico machine with Casey Mears, those are the finishes that tries to keep these teams going, because when you come to Talladega, it is truly more equal than anywhere. It's not completely equal. I agree with Jeff earlier in the show. Fast cars will still have a better opportunity, but you have to manage it all day long. Put yourself in the right position. Have a teammate helping you, perhaps.
And what terrifies the bigger teams racing for championships is, did you see how many cars came across the start-finish line? It looked like maybe 15.
That's right.
So
That's right.
That means at some point during the day, a lot of cars got taken out with wrecks.
Attrition, another one of the storylines that take place at Talladega, as Casey Mears goes 24th quick. Quickest in his lap of the 38 that have taken time. Still on the cut line, Kurt Busch. Trevor Bayne breaks into the top 12. That means that Kurt Busch gets bumped out of the top 12, which will advance into the second round. And Kurt's brother Kyle also outside of the top 12. He's with David.
Kyle Busch is out of the first round of qualifying, out of the top 12. Will that change what you do? And Kyle, the guys coming back now seem to be the chasers. So are their cars going to be better in the race than they were in qualifying?
I've never I've qualified on one speedway pole in my career, so that's a lot of speedway races, and that was probably the worst we ever ran in the race. So qualifying really doesn't mean anything. You know, I'd much rather we just draw uphill and just line up and race them. You know, like old short track dirt days. But I guess we got to fill TV time, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're talking. But our M&M's Halloween Camry will be just fine, and Halloween comes up next week, so Sam's Club's on our tailgate this week, and anybody can obviously go pick up their M&M's product and get ready for Halloween, because I know I am.
Trick or treat. Good luck tomorrow.
You got it.
Kyle Busch here at Talladega.
And now Casey Kane on track and now on the clock for his one lap of qualifying. Again, in this new format, single car qualifying from the super speedways. Martin Truex Jr. learned the hard way that you can't go below the double yellow line on your qualifying lap. His time was disallowed. And Casey Kane looking very good compared to Paul Menard.
Yeah, this is a great lap for the 5-car. Remember, not only are they teammates to Gordon, Johnson, and Earnhardt, but they also share a building with Jeff Gordon. The way that company's broken up at Hendry Motorsports, Jeff Gordon and Casey Kane, their 2 cars are out of one building. And with Jeff Gordon on the pole by a good margin, almost 2/10, it seems like he's going to be right there with his teammate.
Or does he move Jeff Gordon down? Casey Kane second quickest. 49.348 for Casey Kane. And Casey Kane the perfect example of why this racetrack is so scary for these chase drivers. Kasey Kahne was in the chase last year. Coming out of turn number 4, he is in to the next round. But when he comes down that short chute into the tri-oval, 4 cars are going to get by Kasey Kahne when they come across the start-finish line. And Kasey Kahne missed by 4 points of making it into the next round.
Talk about the wrecks. We talk about all the stuff that happened in Talladega. We forget that start-finish line is way further down the racetrack. And if you get in the wrong line, you make the wrong move coming off turn 4, you can be running 12th. You can be running 8th and finish 20th. I mean, we've seen it. I've been in a situation before where I took the white flag running in the 10th place position somewhere in that area and finished in the mid-20s. And you know, just got put in the wrong line, got myself in the wrong line, and that can happen at this racetrack. So you will not know if your favorite driver is in this chase until after the race. I don't care where they are running on the last lap. Until they take that checker, it is not done.
Clint Boyer, the 36-year-old out of Emporia, Kansas, through the tri-oval and across the start-finish line, 27th quickest. His teammate, 20th quickest, so a little bit slower for Clint Boyer. Just before the 15 came out, take a look on pit road, backed up and backed into the 51. You seen that before?
No. I've never seen that before. You know, you have to get the car in reverse. You have to really push down.
Work difficult. You got to work at it.
Yeah, I've not seen that before. I wonder how much damage is on the 51. It probably did not affect the 15 very much.
So the team and the crew looking at the front end of the 51, and that means they'll allow Danica Patrick to go out in front of the 51. Danica Patrick, Stewart-Haas Racing, running that high line, and while she's getting up to speed, let's go to Dave Burns.
And Carl and I were watching that with interest. I've never seen that on the pit grid before, but you see a lot of things here at Talladega. You've been bumped. Has your optimism been moved south at all?
No, it hasn't. I mean, we've got a fast race car. It drove really well in practice the other day. Yesterday, feels like days ago.
It's been a long day.
It has been a long day. And we haven't crashed anything yet, so we're doing well. And I think we've got them. I'd like to say we got them right where we want them, but we don't. We're going to be starting in the middle, and that makes it actually pretty difficult. You know, we'll have to watch when the green flag drops how aggressive we want to be those first couple of laps. But we'd like to go to the front and stay up there. I think that's going to be everyone's plan, so we'll see how it goes.
That's very interesting, guys. In the middle, so he's got to make the choice, forward or backward.
And he's going to have to choose which line to get into, because there's probably going to be at least 3 that'll be right there in the middle of the pack.
So the reason that is a difficult decision is because you can ride in the back and get in a wreck. You can be leading the race and get in a wreck. You can be in the middle of the pack and get in a wreck. So there is no right answer. I mean, that's what's so difficult about this decision is how aggressive do I run this race? I mean, you know, you watch these races as long as we've all watched them, and you've seen the leaders wreck, you've seen the middle wreck, you've seen the last place car wreck. So there is no safe place.
Danica Patrick in the red. Does not look like she will break into the top 12. Where will she fall in the order? 19th quickest for Danica Patrick. That leaves just Allgaier and Greg Biffle still to qualify, and Allgaier with a very unique situation on pit road. Mike Massaro, what's going on down there with them?
Well, it's tough to determine exactly how severe the damage is. We won't know until the race car gets on the track and we see the speeds, but I can tell you what they're working on. They're working on the grill area, trying to pull the screen out. It's damaged. It's bent in. An engineer also told me it might have pulled the splitter up a little bit off the racetrack, so that's a concern, but it doesn't look big. But, you know, every piece of aerodynamic front end of these race cars, when you come to these racetracks, as you guys know, is incredibly important. So the team trying to get it as repaired as they possibly can before they go out on the track.
Well, that's their driver next year for the 51 car. With Clint Boyer in the 15, they're going to have to ask him, what are you doing to us?
Why did that just happen? Clint Boyer backed up before he went onto the track, backed into the 51, and they continue to work on the front end of that car is Greg Biffle, who was fastest in first practice yesterday because he was running in a pack. And he was over 201 miles an hour in practice yesterday. His qualifying speed today, 191 miles an hour. 191.846, 19th quickest in this qualifying session.
You know what's really unique when you look at the left side of the screen is you talk about the companies and the different companies that put cars on the racetrack and how they prepare. Well, look, you have Hendrick 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th. You have Penske 6th, 7th, 8th, or a Penske associate car in the 21st. You know, a lot of association with those cars all towards the front.
Let's find out what was going on. Let's hear from Clint Boyer. He's with Dave.
Yep, signing some autographs now, and we'll slip in with Clint here as we walk over to his car and get out of the way so we don't get run over by the next car. The first question, the first thing you said to me, CB, was when we started talking, how? And I said I would ask you that. What happened?
Well, I mean, obviously it was in reverse. I mean, reverse is, you know, over and up first gear, but I don't know if this is a different transmission or what for the super speedways. Felt terrible. I knew as soon as obviously you got to leave pretty aggressive, and as soon as I let the clutch out, it was going the wrong direction. But nah, you know, I guess like I said, more practice probably would have helped yesterday. I only pulled this thing out once. I don't know. A lot of times we run different transmissions in these cars and stuff like this. I don't know if it is or not, but obviously it was in reverse. I feel really, really bad for Addington and all those guys in the 51. This is supposed to be an uneventful day. I just made it eventful. I wasn't trying to make it eventful.
Go back and have an uneventful evening. Now, we've heard of passenger cars, Rick, that sometimes, you know, you might leave, think you're leaving in park and you actually have it in drive, but I've never seen this for the race car.
We did today, and the 51 has been told by NASCAR that they now are on the 5-minute clock. One of the things I've noticed, I don't believe they've ever opened the hood. That was, they've been making some, you know, they're looking very closely at the front of that, but they have not opened the hood on that car. So they're making a few repairs. They're on the 5-minute clock. They're the only car that has not gone in round one. When we come back, they'll be on the track. Tonight is football night. Marco Murray and the 3-3 Eagles head to Charlotte to face Cam Newton and the undefeated Carolina Panthers. Bob Costas and Dan Patrick host football night in America. Coverage begins 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, only on NBC. Very interesting qualifying today, and I will start off with Martin Truex Jr. Came out of turn 4 into the trioval. He goes below the double yellow line. The drivers were told you're not allowed to go below the double yellow line in qualifying, so his time was disallowed.
Continue. Clint Boyer thinks he has it in first gear, but in fact he has it in reverse, so gets ready to leave and backs into the front of the 51 car. Again, these shifters, you either have to pull the shifter up and move it over and move it forward, or you have to push them down. If the shifter is different than what you're accustomed to, you can have it in first gear, but you think you have it in reverse.
So now the 51 on a weird qualifying day. Justin Allgaier will take to the track as the final car in round 1 of qualifying. He wants to make it into the top 12 to advance into round 2, which will be the final round of qualifying. All the way around the top of the track. Justin Allgaier out of Riverton, Illinois. ARCA Series champion.
You see we have, you know, Tony Stewart's on the cut line. Remember, there was a second round, and Justin Allgaier is going to try to advance himself into the second round. Trevor Bayne on forward. They know they're moving on, but they haven't able to start working on their car yet. One thing NASCAR does here at the speedways, because temperatures and such can be such an advantage, is when this car is complete and qualifying's over, that's when the top 12 will be able to start cooling their water. That way everybody has the same amount of time, keep it equal for every team.
Going the wrong way to start off with for Justin Allgaier in the red and losing speed to the time that Tony Stewart posted. Allgaier, who's locked into the race based upon points, owner points, and where they stand, will be in the race. But as things continue, we know that he's not going to be in the top 12. Now, at the end of this qualifying session, they're going to I'm sure, work a little bit harder on the front end of that car, which received some damage when Clint Boyer backed into them before he went onto the track.
Well, you got to be careful. This is an impound race.
Well, and
right?
this
is an impound race. So really, it's to NASCAR's discretion. NASCAR is going to have to look at this. Steve Addington, the crew chief, and NASCAR will have to look at this 51 car and determine what damage there is or isn't, what needs to be repaired. But this is an impound race, so this 51 team doesn't just get to do whatever they think they want to do. They're going to have those discussions with NASCAR.
And NASCAR will have to make that decision. So Justin Allgaier, 39th quickest of the 45 that took time. Martin Truex Jr.'s time disallowed. Fastest in the first round, Jeff Gordon, all smiles at Talladega. Round 1 of qualifying complete from Talladega Super Speedway. We look at 13 through 45. 43 will start. Chasers outside the top 12. Kurt Busch, Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch, Ryan Newman. Further back, Austin Dillon, 26th. Out of the bottom will race. Matt DiBenedetto. Martin Truex Jr., the driver in the chase that will start 43rd because of his time not allowed. And Jeff Burton and Michael Annett will not make the show for Sunday. Drivers up at the top in that first round of qualifying: Hendrick Motorsports, Dale Earnhardt Jr. 5th, Jimmy Johnson is 4th, Casey Kane is 2nd, and Jeff Gordon the fastest in round 1. From it. He's with Mike.
And Rick, while Jeff Gordon was turning that lap, I was with his teammate Casey Kane, who practically jumped out of his shoes when he saw the lap time you put up. What was it like for you behind the wheel?
Yeah, I mean, these guys have just done such an amazing job with their 3M Chevrolet. All year long, restrictor plate qualifying has gone extremely well. Our cars have been really fast, and you got to obviously give a lot of credit throughout the whole organization, Hendrick Engines, everybody in the body shop, and everybody on this 24 team for just working so hard, the details. But yeah, it's awesome to see Casey right there. We were 1-2, I think, the last time we were here, so it's so close. I mean, you really, literally, normally it's like, okay, don't worry about the line and hitting your marks and your ship points, to the exact, but in order to beat him, we're going to have to.
Yeah, he's not going to let up here in round 2. What's it going to take to duplicate that performance and keep it at the top?
Well, and this is where the work of the team continues. They're managing temperatures, running the right amount of tape, and just trying to make sure that we do every single thing right to get a little bit more speed out of the car this next time out. And again, then I've just got to go out and hit my shift points and run a nice smooth line.
Jeff Gordon attempting to add yet another bullet point to his illustrious resume, looking for another pole here at Talladega. Dave?
And Mike, I talked to Justin Allgaier just after he hopped out of this 51 car, asked him if he wanted to tell us about it, and he said, thank you, no, I'm good, and obviously very disappointed with that run that they had. I did talk to the crew, and they said that front end damage is such that they will not be able to race it this way, so they will have to go to work. It's pushed in right there where you see my camera shooting, the black area there down low, and they're going to have to change that or work on it and fix it before they can go racing tomorrow, Rick.
And as you mentioned, it's an impound brace, so they will have to get approval from NASCAR to do that without losing their qualifying spot, which really they were 39th, so they're not really going to move back that far if they do make adjustments to the front.
Yeah, so basically, NASCAR's made these qualifying at the super speedways impound, which means these teams have to set their car up for the race, put some tape on it, go qualify. They're not allowed to make but just very few adjustments. What the 51's going to have to do is discuss with NASCAR. The concern maybe isn't the speed as much as the durability. When you talk about that grill inlet where the air goes to the radiator, it's a set size at the speedway. NASCAR limits that opening. So if it's broken anything loose or there's a leak and lets air go somewhere other than through the radiator, that could be very detrimental tomorrow. So they're going to have to get inside this 51 car, see what damage they really have behind what you can see on the nose.
Again, a crazy start to qualifying with Martin Truex Jr. and then Clint Boyer. We'll see if Jeff Gordon can be the fastest in Talladega. Wednesday night is rivalry night on NBCSN. Solid star power in this matchup. Sidney Crosby and the Penguins pay a visit to Alex Ovechkin and the red-hot Capitals, winners of 5 straight games. Tonight you love to hate Pittsburgh and Washington. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. 12 drivers all fighting for the pole as NASCAR Sprint Cup Series qualifying presented by DraftKings continues with round number 2. That is coming up next. Can Jeff Gordon hold on and win the pole once again here at Talladega? Premier League action tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. The Manchester Derby is on NBCSN as Manchester United and Manchester City clash. Manchester City has won 6 of the last 8 derbies in league competition. At noon on NBC, Liverpool hosts Southampton. Liverpool has 3 straight wins in the series, conceding just 1 goal. And round 2 is underway. Tony Stewart, first on track. He was 12th quickest in round 1. We will go in descending order from slowest to fastest.
And when you look how close round 1 was, Rick, it's really going to be interesting to see. You had Stewart at a 49.70. Hamlin ran a 71. Kenseth a 65. There's talking hundredths of a second. A 2.5 mile restrict or 2.6 mile restrictor plate track. So much can go into the speed, whether it's the wind, your temperatures. You talked about water temperature. The driver's talking about how they have to manage that. Jeff Gordon mentioned it.
He said shift points too. That's important as far as when you shift to get up into 4th.
Yeah, no question. You want to run that engine to the maximum RPMs, the maximum horsepower. So that may be you want to shift a little bit earlier than you think. The engine builders do a really good job of telling you where that shift points are, and you really have to focus and pay attention so that getting up to speed, you're maximizing your opportunity to get that engine working the best it possibly can. And again, this is the second time on the racetrack for all these teams. So now the rear gear is warmer, the transmission's warmer, the hubs are warmer, everything's warmer. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them go a little bit quicker this time.
And Tony Stewart will be the indicator of that, as he is the first on the track for this final round to determine the top 12 starting positions for tomorrow's race, which is the final race of round 2, and it's an elimination race. 4 drivers will have their championship hopes dashed at the end of the day, as Tony Stewart posts a 49.845, a little bit slower.
Yeah, almost a little over a full 1/10 of a second slower. And you mentioned it, Rick, it's in descending order from slowest to fastest. So any car that runs that isn't the fastest at that time has lost opportunity. If you were the 6th car and you go out and you're not the fastest when you run, that means people that were slower than you in the last round have beat you.
Right. So we'll see how Trevor Bayne does compared to Tony Stewart. And right now he's tracking that he's going to be a little bit better. And can Trevor Bayne put down a good enough lap that he can potentially beat, say, Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, guys that were just around him in that first round of qualifying. Starting position not as important at Talladega as it is at quite a few other tracks because of the draft and the shifting around that people will do during the race.
While that's true, though, Rick, even as a crew chief, and I knew that, you still stood on top of the truck or stood on pit road, looking at time and scoring, counting every 100th of a second. It's bragging rights. You've worked to try to get this car the best car you can bring for your driver. You see Trevor Bayne, he improves on his time. He had run a 71. This time he runs a 67, so 400s quicker than his first round. This is your chance. When we talk about, is it the car, is it the driver, what makes a car go fast? When it comes to speedway qualifying, such a huge percentage is on the car that it allows the crew chief, the crew, the team guys, the engine builders. This is your opportunity to shine.
Kevin Harvick, 3 wins already in the 2015 campaign. Harvick, 7 points above the cut line entering this final race, this cut race of round 2. Harvick was in a must-win situation at the end of round 1. We were at Dover. He won. He dominated. Now, not in a must-win situation, but when you come to Talladega, you really need to have a great finish to ensure the possibility that you will advance into round 3. reliable for Harvick, and he is not going to be as quick as Trevor Bayne. Second quickest at a 49.720. A little bit slower that time for Kevin Harvick. And if you slow down in this second round, should you be concerned?
I don't
as a team or a driver?
I think you're a little disappointed, but I don't think you're overly concerned. I think that what that may mean is that you just did a really, really good job of preparing your cars for qualifying with everything cold. So I don't know that I would be concerned.
Right along with Denny Hamlin, you can hear wide open.
See above Denny Hamlin's head, he's got this all this material above him. There's actually a hatch that, in the event the driver needs to get out, he can actually open that hatch. And don't know why, Steve. They only run those in restricted plate races, but you can run them anywhere you want, but they just happen to only run them in restricted plate races because they might leak just a little bit of air and make the car go just a little bit quicker.
Are you giving away a secret?
Oh, it's no secret. Everybody has them.
Denny Hamlin, third quickest of the four that have gone in this second round.
As we mentioned, he was expecting to be P1 of the four that went. So, Trevor Bayne and Kevin Harvick have obviously done a good job. They've improved. Harvick, maybe not as much as Trevor Bayne. Trevor Bayne really, really improved his opportunity from the first round.
On the clock for Joey Logano, and you see how close he is to Trevor Bayne's time, fluctuating right around 9 one-thousandths of a second. Now he's 13, 14 one-thousandths of a second slower and losing a little ground to Trevor Bayne.
Talking about this race being an opportunity race, for teams that need a win, but also, to win a championship. But like Steve talked about earlier, look at Trevor Bayne. He's fastest right now. Who needs a win more than Roush Fenway? The years they've had, the struggles they've had, they've been improving. There's no question they've been improving. But if they could have a good qualifying and everything, come out and have a really strong effort and win this race, that would go a long way to verifying that the things they're doing are correct.
And Trevor Bayne, his really claim to fame right now is the fact that he won the Daytona 500. And anyone that wins the Daytona 500 definitely should hang their hat on that win. But Trevor Bayne, still the fastest in this qualifying session at 49.674, as you mentioned. Roush Fenway Racing looking for things to hang their hat on, as far as things to be proud of. They've had some decent finishes out of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as of late. Trevor Bayne now showing some speed here in round 2 of the qualifying from Talladega Super Speedway. And Brad Keselowski on the clock, and he's in the red already compared to the lap that Trevor Bayne posted. And he continues to go the wrong direction. Not gaining on the time that Bayne posted, but losing ground to it. Next to go will be Ryan Blaney in the 21. The irony of that is the fact that Trevor Bayne won the Daytona 500 driving the 21 for Wood Brothers. Brad Keselowski, 5th quickest on his qualifying lap in round 2.
I'm really surprised, Rick. Keselowski ran a 56. That was an 82 right there, so 2.5 tenths slower. Most of these teams, not Trevor Bayne, but the majority of these teams just aren't finding quite as much speed as they did in the first round. We talked about that. To put it in perspective, Brad Keselowski's lap of a 49.82, that would have put him, 16th, 17th, 16th on the regular qualifying. So, that's how close qualifying is. That lap, why it doesn't seem, what's a tenth of a second? Well, a tenth of a second a round ago was not even making the top 12.
35 one-thousandths of a second. That's what separates Ryan Blaney and Trevor Bayne. Ryan Blaney, fairly decent lap here, but it's not going to be enough, it looks like, to take over that top spot from Trevor Bayne. He goes 4th quickest. Ryan Blaney in that Ford. Trevor Bayne, as I mentioned, it was Daytona, the Daytona 500 back in 2011. David Pearson paint job on that Wood Brothers number 21. Trevor Bayne, when he crossed the start-finish line, he was probably as surprised as most people that were watching that race. He said, "Did I just win the Daytona 500?" And sure enough, he did. How about Dale Earnhardt Jr. early on in the green and going the right direction?
We're going to see a lot of this with these Hendrick cars coming up. We've got 4 Hendrick cars coming, and then you got Matt Kenseth. So we're going to see a lot of green in the next 4 or 5 cars.
We'll see how good of a lap Dale Earnhardt Jr. can post. And into the tri-oval. Still gaining. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. 49.575 for Earnhardt Jr. and he now is quickest. And here at Talladega, the name Earnhardt very much celebrated.
I think we know his strategy for tomorrow. He's going to qualify. He's going to start in the front. I think he's going to try to stay in the front. He's going to try to lead as many laps as he can, force the tempo, try to get them single file, try to get them on top of the racetrack, running single file, leading the race. I think that's exactly what he's going to try to do.
Yeah, we sat down this morning. We talked about it some. We're going to see the interview tomorrow in the Countdown Green, the pre-race show, just about the situation he's in, the opportunity he has, the need to come here and win, to move forward, what this track means to him. We had a good long conversation about the chase in Talladega, so it was interesting. But you're right. He was very confident in how he wanted to run this race, and that was be at the front, control the pack, be the lead. And right now, though, he's going to have to somehow pass the 48, because if the lap the 48 is on, this looks like easily a pole run compared to the 88.
Here's the problem, Junior. We gave you a really good race car, but your teammates have them too. So, that's the problem.
And once again, we saw sparks underneath the 48. So dragging just a little bit at these speeds, which, by the way, now is provisional pole. Jimmy Johnson goes 49.467. 193.584 miles per hour.
I know, Rick, I still have that 24 and the 5 circled here in the spring. They qualified 1-2. But not just that, the 24 dominated qualifying. They were on the pole by almost 3/10 of a second. Here in the first round, they were clear of their teammate by over 1/10 of a second. It's just going to be, or not quite a 10th, but close to a 10th of a second. It's going to be interesting to see. Matt Kenseth, though, had a great run in round 1. We'll see if he can bring the speed into round 2.
Kenseth, he is tracking in the red now. Not able to post the same speed that Jimmy Johnson has been able to put up, but gaining on it a bit.
See the 20 also bought him out there, some sparks. He's making time back, though, here. Coming to the checkered.
Close. Comes through the tri-oval. Will he be able to make up enough ground? Kenseth. And Kenseth's second quickest. 49.468 for Matt Kenseth.
So there's your second guy that needs to win this race. Most likely, Earnhardt Jr. and Matt Kenseth, they almost have to win this race Sunday. There's the second one qualifying the front, toward the front.
Still 2 to go. Casey Kane and Jeff Gordon. The 2 fastest in round 1. Can they back up their times? Now on the clock is Casey Kane. Starting off in the red compared to his teammate, Jimmy Johnson.
It's been no secret that Hendrick Motorsports has not had the summer they had hoped. They hadn't won races. While Dale Earnhardt Jr. has won twice, both of those were at restricted plate tracks. Jimmy Johnson has won at some downforce tracks, but overall the company is it's hard to say with 6 wins, a couple cars that say it's a down year, but really they haven't had the year. Jimmy Johnson getting knocked out at Dover, the chases, a lot of things gone wrong. So you have to wonder, Jeff, if they didn't have Talladega a little bit, we talked earlier, it's about ego. Here's Casey Kane trending into the green. Come here and prove to everyone, hey, we're still competitive. We got to get some stuff turned around, but here at Talladega, we still have speed.
And he betters his teammate, Casey Kane, to the top scoring pylon. 49.453 for Casey Kane. That was a huge improvement. 14 one-thousandths of a second faster than Jimmy Johnson. That's how close it is, and that's amazing to me. They're going 2.66 miles, and 14 one-thousandths of a second separate the top two right now. And this looks like a great lap for Jeff Gordon, building already.
Already in the green, continuing to trend the right direction.
You mentioned earlier this year, it was 0.3 of a second that he was faster than his teammate.
He's working on that now. I mean, right now he's solid 10th, right to the middle of the corner. He can be a 10th of a second faster and still has, half the racetrack to go.
Much like Hendrick Motorsports, Jeff Gordon still haven't found that elusive win of this year, his final year in Sprint Cup competition. A pole here, all of these tracks are sweet to go back to, but this right here, what a dominating run right here for the 24.
Yes, it is.
The last race at Talladega Superspeedway. And all the 24 fans on their feet celebrating. Jeff Gordon wins the pole again. The only Superspeedway pole that Jeff Gordon didn't win in 2015 was rained out.
Good job there, fellas. Great job today.
That's what all the drivers and teams are afraid of. Here's Jeff Gordon. What the lap he just laid down, that was 0.2 faster than second. That's really, really quick. Everybody's looking and saying, how did they do that? How did they beat us that bad? This is the same thing that happened in the spring. They finished 31st. So that is what Talladega is all about. You have to find a way to miss the wreck. They got in the last lap wreck and finished 31st. So all these guys, to me, Jeff Gordon needs a good run, no question. Kenseth, Earnhardt Jr., they all have the track position they wanted. Can they manage a race and make it work out for them?
That's what I'm ready to see. 4 Hendrick cars, 2 need to advance. 2 are already out of the chase. Can they work together? Can the teammates work together to try to get the 24 and the 88 through to round 2?
Will teammates work as teammates in the race tomorrow? We're going to hear from the drivers when we come back. Tomorrow on CNBC, and of course the race. But the winner of the pole, Jeff Gordon. What an impressive run for him once again. Dave?
Ricky sure knows how to make an entrance. His last Talladega race, and you are on the pole. And I saw you fist-bumping members of your team I don't even recognize. How deep does this effort go?
It's very deep. These guys work extremely hard. I know everybody does for these restrictor plate tracks, but to be able to get the results like that, and they've been doing it all year long on these tracks, and that's just a complete credit to all the details. They come from the top down. Alan, he really does a phenomenal job at every track, but especially these tracks with these cars. But Hendrick engines, Hendrick chassis, everybody at Hendrick Motorsports, and 1, 2, 3, and 5. It's an awesome day for Hendrick Motorsports.
And Jeff's 5th Talladega pole comes at a great time. It's a need-to-win situation, Rick.
And we want to take a look at the starting grid. Making up row 1, Jeff Gordon, Casey Kane. You mentioned Jimmy Johnson. 3 drivers, Hendrick Motorsports, all in the top 3. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano making up row 5. Joey Logano looking to sweep the round 2 races. Further back in the field, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ryan Newman, also another chase driver back there starting 18. Further back in the field, Austin Dillon start outside of row 13. We continue back. Michael Waltrip in 17. Row 17, row 18, Bobby Labonte, former champion of the Sprint Cup Series. And all the way back in the 43rd starting position, Martin Truex Jr. Because of the time disallowed when he went below the double yellow lines, it was told to the drivers 3 different times prior to qualifying today. And Martin Truex Jr., after going below the double yellow lines, his time disallowed, so he will start 43rd. We're going to preview tomorrow's race when we come back to Talladega Superspeedway. The field is now set. busy day tomorrow on NBCSN. It all starts at noon with NASCAR America Sunday. All right, guys, a lot of pressure. Jeff, what are you expecting for tomorrow?
Well, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch how the drivers manage the race throughout the race. But then when it gets time to go late in the race, you're just going to have to go put your car in situations you don't really want to be in, but you're going to be forced to do so.
Yeah, you can have all the strategies you want, but at some point the strategy has to be go to the front. Whether that's early in the race or the end of the race, you have to get there at some point.
And it might or might not be in your own hands as far as if you're going to get up there. The field's set for tomorrow. Coming up next, it's Off the Grid, Talladega. Inside look at this great super speedway.